On April 30th to May 7th, my family and I are going on a trip to New York for the first time. We are staying at the Best Western Hospitality. I'm excited because I know New York is quite a progressive city and was the birthplace of the gay rights movement. While I'm in New York, I hope to learn much of that history and be able to share it with everyone.
When I think of New York, I think of a lot of taxis and people walking around in the streets and a lot of people going shopping. I'm most excited to go see the Broadway plays and experience all of the different foods and shops. Yeah, I'm gonna miss her a lot, but I know she'll be well taken care of.
One of my favorite things we did was go see Broadway plays, which were located within Times Square. Times Square exists at the junction of Broadway and 7th Avenue. It is constantly lit up with tons of electronic billboards and advertisements, giving it nicknames Crossroads of the World and Center of the Universe. It is a living place of the Broadway theater district and a major part of the world's entertainment industry. My family and I saw 3 musical plays: the notorious Wicked, Frozen, and Aladdin. 330,000 people pass through Times Square daily, and over 460,000 pedestrians walk through on the busiest days of the year. One of the busiest days of the year is New Year's, where they have the famous New Year's Eve ball drop that began on December 31st, 1907. Times Square has been featured in many films including Godzilla, Ghostbusters, Captain America, and Spider-Man. Broadway theater also has a history of being a safe space for queer people. Some famous LGBTQ plays are The Normal Heart, a story centered around the start of the AIDS epidemic, The Boys in the Band, that also was adapted into a motion picture in 1970, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, a rock musical about a transgender singer that also got its own feature film with actor Neil Patrick Harris, and The Color Purple, the musical about a black bisexual woman's struggles in the Deep South. A key place in the gay liberation movement was the Stonewall Inn. The Stonewall Inn is a historic gay bar located in the Greenwich Village neighborhood of Manhattan. In the 1960s, the bar was owned by the Mafia and served some of the most marginalized people in the gay community, including drag queens, transgender people, sex workers, and homeless youth. On June 28, 1969, the bar was raided by police, but the queer community fought back and rioted. The event became known as the Stonewall Riots and was a pivotal moment in the gay liberation period. The years after, the community had protest marches that eventually turned into what is now known as the Pride Parades. In 2016, across the street from the Stonewall Inn, the Stonewall National Monument was officially designated by President Barack Obama. The sculpture of the figures was made by American artist George Siegel, though in August 2015, anonymous activists painted the figures' faces brown to protest white and cis washing of the queer liberation movement, as trans women of color activists Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera were leaders of the riots. About a mile down the block from Stonewall exists a store called The Fluid Project. The Fluid Project is the world's first gender-neutral store and works to challenge gender boundaries. They value acceptance, balance, integrity, intention, and openness. Their social code says, "We celebrate what makes us different, and we cherish what makes us the same. We check our assumptions at the door. We push society's boundaries while honoring our own. We listen and communicate with care. We give respect and earn trust. We know the risk it takes to learn. We are all teachers, and we are all students. We believe in free speech without discrimination. We make room for everyone. We ask that you enter our space with an open heart because we are all stronger together." Next, we went to the beautiful Central Park. Central Park is the most visited urban park in the United States. It receives about 38 million visitors annually. It is also one of the most filmed places in the world. 231 movies have scenes shot here. The Central Park Conservancy, formed in 1980, is a private, not-for-profit organization that takes care of and manages the park. A reservoir flows through Central Park, and on its eastern shore is a bi-level hall called the Bethesda Terrace that has an elaborate fountain. Central Park has been a big part in LGBTQ history. The Angel of Waters, a sculpture by the Bethesda Fountain, was made by Emma Stebbins for a woman she loved. The first Pride March in U.S. history, dubbed Liberation Day, in 1970, 1 year after the Stonewall riots, went from Christopher Street to Central Park to the Stonewall Inn. Another famous park we visited was Washington Square Park. The Washington Square Arch is in the northern gateway into the park as a celebration of nonconformity. The fountain in the middle is a popular tourist spot, and the park is surrounded by buildings of the New York University. Transgender activists Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera founded an organization called STAR, Transgender Action Revolutionaries, after NYU refused to let a gay dance take place and other gay organizations were not being active. The area became the core of an early African American community in New York and a place for artists, performers, musicians, and poets to perform. One day we took a boat tour on the Hudson River. The Hudson River flows between the boundaries of New York City and Jersey City and eventually drains into the Atlantic Ocean and New York Harbor. It is 135 miles long with depths of 30 feet to 160 feet, and one part, known as World's End, is 202 feet deep. There are several bridges across the Hudson River, including George Washington Bridge, the Lincoln Tunnels, and the Brooklyn Bridge. Unfortunately, famous trans activist Marsha P. Johnson was found dead in the Hudson River, and it is uncertain if she committed suicide or was murdered. Still to this day, she is an inspiration to many trans women of color, as her middle name stands for Pay It No Mind. We did a great deal of walking around New York, and I got about 450 photographs, including works of art in honor of the victims and the first responders of 9/11. We also went to see the memorial. And finally, one of the most iconic parts of New York, the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty was a gift from France to the people of the United States and is a neoclassical sculpture on Liberty Island in the New York harbor. It is the figure of Libertas, the Roman goddess of liberty. She is holding a torch above her head with her right hand and a tablet in her left hand with July 4th, 1776 engraved on it, the date of the U.S. Declaration of Independence. The Statue of Liberty is a welcoming sight to immigrants arriving from abroad. Liberta, the goddess of freedom in ancient Rome, was widely worshipped, especially among emancipated slaves. The crown on her head has 7 rays meant to invoke the sun, the 7 seas, and the 7 continents. Her crown and the torch symbolizes her enlightening of the world. May 7th, my mom's birthday, we say goodbye to New York and go back to California, a place that also has its place in the gay rights movement. There's still many fights that need to be fought, but we can still appreciate our progress so far.
Hello, thank you, New York City! Thank you all! Are you all ready to make a ruckus? Are you all ready to fight for our rights? Are you all ready to say that in the United States of America, everyone is loved, everyone deserves justice, and everyone deserves equal protection and prosperity in our country? It is such an honor to be here, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we're gathering here today, the weekend before Martin Luther King Day.
How do you feel? There are so many people and lots of honking.